Well, welcome to another Frontiersman Live with publisher Dennis Anderson from the Frontiersman, and my guest today is Matt Hickman, General Manager of the Anchorage Press. Hello, Matt.
Hey, how we doing, Dennis?
Doing really well this morning. How are things in Anchorage today?
Oh, lovely. We got a nice gentle rain and a nice foggy day.
Right on.
Nice coastal climes.
So what's the big news out of Anchorage right now?
Right now the streets are wet, and I think our summer is finally over. But it's been a nice one. I think that's the big news in Anchorage right now.
Well, that's all that's happening in Anchorage? Okay. What about the...
Well, we got a lot of political hubbub, and you got yourself into some... you're getting yourself right into some state political fires yourself there, Mr. Anderson.
Well, it was a conversation with Representative Mark Newman that I thought was would show the folks the dysfunction between the Matsu delegate and the governor's office per se. So it had to do with KGB, and the governor had delayed a portion, the state portion, of the project when he first became governor, and Newman took exception to it, and the delay kept going on, and then people kept dying on the road. That's a horrible road to travel on. 5 deaths so far in 2018, and Newman finally lost it. Had a conversation with the governor's liaison that he took exception to, and he got really upset. So he shared that conversation with me, and so published it.
Yeah, and then so the governor fired back yesterday afternoon, right? Got you
he did,
your column.
And I didn't, that's fine, and I didn't have a problem with it. And a couple issues they had is one, I didn't reach out to the governor's office, which I did speak to state representatives of the project at the transportation fair, and there wasn't anything in that column that wasn't accurate. He said I muddled the facts, but and the facts that he pointed out, I actually had in the column. So, I don't know what to say about that.
My takeaway from his rebuttal was that he didn't address the main charge of Newman's, which was that the governor's office was holding up construction because the Matsu didn't vote on, revenue generation the way the governor wanted.
You're right, exactly. He did not address that. So I'm not sure what the comment would have been when I would have emailed them and said, "Hey, Mark said this. What do you think?" I don't know what they would have said, but anyway, that the facts of the situation I thought were laid out in the column, but apparently they didn't, and that's okay. But I did have, interesting enough, I've had 2 other legislators reach out to me and say, "Hey, I wish you would have got me involved because I've had the same experience with the same liaison." So it's an issue, and as long as the second largest community in the state doesn't have a voice with, or feels like they don't have a voice, we need to talk about it.
Well, it strikes me, it reminds me so much of the Bridgegate involving New Jersey Governor Chris Christie a few years ago, where people actually went to jail. Kind of the same idea that they're holding up construction on a busy thoroughfare for political vendetta. That seems like part of it that the governor didn't address, which seems like the real issue to me.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if that's the case. I believe that the folks in the legislature that have spoken to me are saying that that they were told that, until you vote for PFD dividend usage in state funds and income tax, then we're not going to fix your roads, basically, is what, what's being relayed. Now, that's a conversation between 2 people that I don't, who knows how accurate that is.
I guess it could be taken 2 ways, because you could mean that by saying, he could just be saying that rhetorically, like, we have no money because nobody let us touch the PFD, right, or have income tax generation.
Yeah, and I wanted people to read the column to see that I'm not saying that Mark Newman's correct, and I'm not saying the governor's correct. I'm just saying here's the communication between two people that have an influence on what's happening in the state, and they can't even. It doesn't even sound like they can talk. So that's to me is the issue, and whether votes are being held hostage, like some people want to say, I don't know about that. But anyway, we've got the conversation started. I was glad that we were identified as a major newspaper in Alaska by the governor.
Yeah, right on.
That was pretty good. And then we now have the other issue we've had in the past here with the Frontiersman is we reach out and we don't always get a response, and I got a feeling now we will.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think we've advanced. And the bottom line is the Mat-Su Valley Frontiersman is the voice of the valley. There's no TV station. There's KVNT with Amy Demboski and Tom Anderson doing their shows out of the valley, but they cover a lot of state stuff. There's no real definitive voice for the valley other than the Frontiersman. And when we have issues in the valley that affect the valley, we're gonna talk about it.
Absolutely, and the ADN doesn't have nearly the presence covering the valley that they used to.
Yeah. So this podcast is sponsored by MTA, Life Technology and Together. So I failed to mention them at the beginning of the podcast, but you'll see it in the we'll have their icons up. But anyway, so MTA, thank you for sponsoring this podcast. So moving on from that column, what do you feel? I think it's very important for us to understand out of Anchorage. Where is the governor's race sitting in Anchorage?
Boy, that is a great question because there's you can't turn around without there being another debate. There's debates almost three a week, and I was at one last week at the Performing Arts Center hosted by Anchorage Downtown Partnership and all the community councils in Anchorage. Dunleavy was a no-show. The Libertarian is kind of a strange guy, and then Begich and Walker were there, and it was really kind of a chance for Begich and Walker to go after each other. They've been very critical that Dunleavy's been skipping a lot of these debates lately. But from my point of view, it sort of seemed like since Walker more or less ducked Begich in the primary, this maybe is giving them the chance to clash that they never got to have. I'm sure Dunleavy's just enjoying it on the sidelines, though, and I'm sure a lot of these debates aren't necessarily demographics he wants to reach or thinks he can reach here in Anchorage.
Yeah, and then wait, you're saying there's demographics in Anchorage you don't think he can reach Dunleavy?
I don't think Dunleavy could reach downtown. Dunleavy's got no pull. There was another debate he missed, which was an NAACP hosted one. He's not going to. So he's kind of. And Dunleavy's response to criticism that he's missing these is that Walker missed the primary and Begich has been absent for 4 years until now. So I think that's a pretty good rebuttal on his end.
Yeah, I mean, I think where Dunleavy stands, right?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much do, and. It really is interesting, Begich versus Walker. It's Begich is definitely getting a lot of momentum. He looks more confident on the stage. He's more or less getting the best of Walker, which is always easier when you're not having to defend a record.
Right.
But Begich really does. At this point, Begich head to head looks like the stronger candidate. But Bill Walker's shaking a lot of hands and just a lot of babies around the state. So we'll see how that familiarity plays
still the most unpopular governor in the country, right?
Yeah, I've heard his approval rating could be as low as 23%, but
that's a tough.
You put somebody head to head, and those things can change.
Yep. So Begich, former U.S. senator, you're saying he's more polished on these debates and so forth.
He's more polished, and you can feel him getting kind of. I don't want to say getting the better of Walker, but he's certainly got the momentum. You can almost feel it.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched a debate not too long ago. Recorded a debate between Parnell and Walker, and then there was a Libertarian candidate as well. And I actually thought Parnell was more polished and was beating him. Did a better job in the debate than Walker did. And Walker kind of fumbles through his speech, but it was interesting that if you didn't know any better, you would have thought, man, there's no chance against Parnell. But,
Yeah, and Walker isn't always the most impressive on stage, but I mean, I've seen him out in the community, especially out in places like the Valley. I saw him visiting the Pioneer Home when there was all that pink slip controversy.
Yeah.
I mean, he really engages on the ground level, on the street. He really engages with people, certainly better than Dunleavy, and better than Begich too, I would think, on that level.
I will say this about Dunleavy: when I've had been on a couple lunches with him where it's really nothing formal, not a debate. The first time it was early on in the campaign, and he didn't feel real polished and didn't answer questions really well. And then after Treadwell came in, and he came back to the same lunch group, and he was a lot better and had much better answers, more concise on what he wants to do. It was fairly impressive that what I see as the change, and as he's campaigning as he was campaigning through the primary, and then he had a competitor. Early on, I didn't think he had a competitor with Hawkins, but with Treadwell, I think made him pick up his game quite a bit.
Yeah.
So what else are you seeing? The House has been under Democratic control, and Anchorage is going to be a big part of if it's going to change, and which is important to the conservative valley. Do you think do you see some changes there, or do you think it's going to be status quo?
Well, I think House and Senate races, especially in Anchorage, are more or less about the primary. I mean, once you get to the general, and I suppose it's the same way in the Valley, you already know who's pretty much going to hold the seats. I don't think there's a whole lot of seats that are going to be contested. I think one of the interesting things will be to watch. Actually, downtown here we have an interesting race with Zach Fields versus Cesar Martinson, who I'm going to actually be interviewing on Friday, who's an interesting guy. There's no way Martinson can win, but he can sort of plant seeds. And I think, when you do have these sort of races that are just decided by demographics ahead of time, these kind of candidates that go around planting seeds are interesting to watch.
Yeah, Martinson's well-spoken. I remember what was the Prop 1 debate?
Yeah.
In Anchorage for the transgender bathroom. But yeah, he's well-spoken, and that'll be interesting.
But I would think any seats that were Republican will stay that way. Seats that were Democrat will stay that way. It really comes down to who caucuses with who, because it's, LeDoux, who crossed over last time. It's mostly about the crossovers and the caucusing, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. So bringing up LeDoux, before we bring up LeDoux, again, a reminder that this podcast is sponsored by MTA, and we appreciate MTA for the sponsorship. LeDoux is made the news herself, and it's been a big deal down here in the Valley because LeDoux, she switched. She did the old switcheroo, got elected as a Republican, but really caucused with the Democrats. What is the feeling up in Anchorage about Charlie Chang and 17 votes coming out of one trailer, so forth?
I don't know. It's sort of, there is outrage that when you first hear it, and the story kind of dies off from there. I think people have kind of just gotten used to voting irregularities in Alaska. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you see any real, everybody gets up in arms when they hear these reports, but, it kind of just fades away most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, but the Republicans aren't letting it go. The Valley's not letting it go. Then Charlie Chang up and passes away.
Yeah,
and LeDoux announces that. Right. Oh, by the way, he's passed away, and it's almost like, oh, was he a real person? I don't, it was really odd. The whole thing was odd, right?
You were going to say he got bumped off or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Russian poisoning.
Sure. I mean, that the crazies will accuse that, but so the Valley's not letting it go, and certainly the Republican. The Valley's really conservative. You're going to get elected. You need to be on the Republican side, but so that's really. I think that's voting irregularities are the norm in Alaska. I think what people perceive, but this one's over the top, I think.
You got some borough elections coming up here really quickly. Like everybody's thinking November, but out in the Mat-Su, you got October 2, right? It's going to be some hot races.
Yeah, we got the borough mayor's up. We got some assembly seats. I don't know. I think I believe it's District 7. I don't have the notes in front of me with where Kowalski stepped down. I'm not really sure how that one's going to go. I think McKee will keep his seat. I think Jesse Sumner is going to really challenge Barb Doty, but I have a feeling that Barb Doty will keep her seat. The big one on the ballot is the voting on in November as opposed to the borough voting in October, and moving that's being pushed by Americans for Prosperity, and it's pretty heated on that one. Barb Doty wrote a op-ed in the Frontiersman, and then today we received a rebuttal by Aaron Downing that we'll be publishing as well. So that one was going to be really interesting.
What's the argument? What's the argument for not moving it to November? Because it seems like it would just be two birds, one stone.
Well, apparently it's still two different voting booths, and it's still according to there's a whole list from the borough, and it was in Doty's column that it's going to cost more to do it and to move it, and we're only talking every other year where it's effective. Where the argument on the other side in Downing's column is that it voting in November, those elections are showing 60% participation as opposed to October where it's like 15%. So those are basically the argument is that cost versus participation.
It's usually it's not the conservative side that tries to drum up turnout. So this is kind of a interesting juxtaposition. Huh?
Yeah, I think so, and I think what's happening is I think their theory is on those who are for moving it is that it's such a low turnout that certain groups can really influence the election. If you have a low turnout, you bundle a bunch of people together, vote one way, and you're going to change. You're going to have a huge effect on the election as opposed to if you got 60% participation, that's going to be very difficult to do. So
well, I think that kind of goes to the other part about the LeDoux situation. I mean, you're talking about 17 votes. I mean, it's such a small number, but when participation is that low, it makes even just a handful of votes.
Yeah, if you look at the votes in the primary and if you look at that district, there's not a lot of votes there at all, not a lot of participation, and that 17 votes is a huge difference, especially when you look at, the initial results was I think LeDoux was losing by 20 or something like that, a real small amount, and then the absentee ballots came in, and lo and behold,
I think she finished with fewer than 1,000, right? She won with fewer than 1,000.
Oh yeah, and it all comes from
crazy. And
she hires somebody to this Charlie Chang to go out and get voters. So it's really interesting. So I think that's the argument for. I don't know how I honestly because somebody asked me if I was going to write an op-ed about it, and I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. Still haven't made up my mind because there's really compelling arguments on both sides. So.
Yeah. Well, maybe we turn it into events somehow, right?
Yeah, there you go. Well, I think it looks like our time is up, Matt, and I appreciate you calling in. Tuckerman Babcock was going to be on today. He's going to be on next week instead. He got called away to the Kenai for business. Again, we really appreciate MTA for sponsoring this podcast. Life, technology, and together for MTA. So thank you very much. Thanks, Rick, for producing, and we'll talk to you next week on Frontiersman Live.